Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Honey House Live Chat, where we have guests from all over and we do bees and beekeeping. Tonight, I've got a really fascinating couple of guests, family, beekeeping business, work really hard together. So let's not have much more further ado. I'll get that out. And I'm going to introduce Luke and Susie from Northumberland Honey Company. Welcome,
Hi.
two of you.
Hi.
How are you
Thanks
doing?
for having me. We're good. We're good.
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
Got your kids to bed. I know what it's like.
Just one is still awake.
Yeah.
Okay.
There may well be a guest appearance at some point, but that's the trials and tribulations.
If it's not a child, it'll be a dog.
Okay. It's great to have the both of you on. I know you both have loads of different parts in your business. I first of all would like to ask if you could just give us like an overview of generally what you make and what you cover in the beekeeping industry. And it's basically everything I know, but carry on.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having us on, Richard. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
So Northumberland Honey Company, we set up in 2015, so 11 years this year. And we keep, at the moment, we have about 300 honey producing colonies going through winter, around 100 nucleus colonies. And in the season, we manage around 800 apodias for raising queens. So last year's output of queens was about 2,500 queens open mated. We also instrumentally inseminate queens for breeding, which we can go up to about 200 queens instrumentally inseminated in a year. That's effectively the beekeeping operation side of it, which feeds the all the rest of the products with honey. And we sell honey in jars, a little bit in bulk, very small amount in bulk. And we do all the sort of added value products from cosmetics to mead. We're one of the few producers of a champagne method sparkling mead. And so our business really is incredibly diverse, but all down to bees. And if you dial it all the way back, it's all down to queens, really.
Yeah.
And so we I think we work well together.
Well, I think you guys must be doing something right, because every time I see you at the beekeeping show, you've got like just like a queue of people waiting to first of all buy your products and secondly to say hello. And I'm usually one of them. But isn't it funny, the beekeeping show, we actually never get a chance to have a chat because it's just not the right environment, you know.
Yeah, I think our queue is only second to your queue, Richard.
Oh, stop. If only it was, I tell you. So the one thing that obviously we're going to cover, we're going to look at hopefully your new bottling line. We're going to talk about queen rearing and your insemination, if we can. And we're also going to talk about what I'd like to start with is an overview of how you make, well, maybe not how you make your mead, but what your mead making kind of empire is. It fascinates me because I would love to do mead, and I've never really done a course on it, even though I know people who've done it and they show me how they do it. But what you seem to provide is like straight away you're like top end, and it looks like amazing. You know, I have to say that when you see I'm not, you know, just I always give praise where it's due, and what you produce is a fantastic looking product, and it tastes amazing too. So if you want to give us a bit of an idea of how that started and where you went with that.
Yeah. So what might be good is if I can screen share.
Okay.
I've got a couple of slides.
Yeah, we'll figure the screen share out. I mean, the mead really is sort of where the story started. And Susie developed this, and really, we're not massive believers in mead being like, you know, the next craft beer or anything like that. So we've not thought this is going to pay the mortgage or, you know, be phenomenally huge. But we started this back really early days, 2016.
We did it as our first sort of value-added product. We were sat at home putting figures into a calculator going, oh, alcohol would be a really great way of making some money out of honey.
Yeah.
And as you can see from the picture, we've not aged a day.
Not a day.
No, that was taken yesterday, wasn't it?
Well, I've got an excuse because I've had 2 children since then.
What's mine?
None.
Yeah, but think of the stress, you know, Luke's had. That is, you know, understandable.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm liking Richard even more.
So we started off, we actually still make mead in the same way. We've just got a little bit more techie, should we say.
Yeah.
We started out of first value added product. We wanted to make a bit of money so that we could reinvest in the bee side of the business, really, because we didn't have loads of hives then. We had a good number, but not the sort of the quantity that we did want and we needed to run it as a proper business. So just in terms of how we make the mead, we're very traditional. We use spring water and honey, and we mix up a yeast culture, and we do primary fermentation in a plastic vessel. The plastic doesn't impart any metal flavor like a stainless steel tank would. So it's really great for mead. And we still do it in this exact way. We use exactly the same vessels as we did 11 years ago.
That's good.
We have invested in some of the other areas since then. We riddle bottles. So after we've done a primary fermentation, we do a second fermentation inside the bottle. This is the champagne method. Well, I shouldn't say that because you're in France.
We can call it the traditional method.
Yes, the traditional method of making a natural sparkling wine. So we're adding champagne. Sorry, I shouldn't say that word, should I?
Well, it's a champagne yeast. Yeah, it is a champagne yeast.
It is a champagne yeast. So we have that inside the bottle, and a second fermentation takes place. Then we put it on the traditional riddling boards, and we turn the bottles once a day, about 4 weeks, until you can see on the slide there that all the yeast is folding down into the neck of the bottle. We then do a process of freeze disgorging. So I do have a video for this. I should show it.
So that would be when you freeze not the very end, but just before the end.
Yes.
Of the bottle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
excuse my ignorance, but you obviously so up with it, and it's pretty cool.
See if you can find a video on it, but
the object is to remove the yeast from that end piece.
Exactly.
So then you can carry on.
I believe it was Madame Clicquot who invented this because she didn't want cloudy champagne. So
as in verb clique, yes,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
I do have sound on this one. Can you hear that all right?
Like I can.
I'll show you in just a second.
I hope everyone else can.
Disgorging is a process whereby we remove the yeast from the bottle. So when the bottles go into second fermentation and create all bubbles that we have in sparkling, we age them for about 9 months, and then we load them onto these riddling boards. The aim of the riddling boards is to move all of the yeast down into the neck of the bottle. So we know all the yeast is down the bottom. What we can do is the process called freeze disgorging, whereby we freeze the neck. We get a little ice plug which encapsulates the yeast. So that happens here. So each of these bottles has got a tiny ice plug. I don't know, I'll hold it up to the light, see whether you can see it.
I was going to say that's so cool, but it literally is.
It is really frozen in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ice plug comes out about 60 miles an hour because there is a lot of pressure behind them.
Hold on to your hat.
Wow.
All going everywhere.
So this is the tech that I was talking about
Doser.
that we've got.
Dosage, and we're topping up for
Fill levels.
any mead that we might have lost.
Just a machine.
Yeah. And that's maintaining the pressure. It's all under nitrogen, so it's not introducing any oxygen.
Wow, that's extremely, like high level.
And then the cork needs to go in. This is slightly less high level.
But it's a champagne type cork with the wire on the cap.
Yeah.
I see.
Giving away all of our trade secrets here.
That is super impressive. Though.
Well, yeah, you'd have to be daft, really.
Just like that. Because we age the bottles for a period of time, they do get a little bit grubby. So I'm just going to give the bottle a little.
Yeah.
So that's disgorging. So it does take 1 to 2 minutes to do each bottle. So it's quite labor intensive, and we probably didn't really appreciate that much when we started it. We probably had more time to do it, but increasingly it becoming sort of more of a we're going to have to make most of the disgorging session and get as much done as possible because we have less and less time, don't we? Really,
we do it because we love it, I think. Really,
yeah. And then just quick final bit on the mead. So we've recently, it was about years ago at least now, we sent some of our heather mead off to a distillery and got it distilled and created a 40% spirit of honey. And this is lovely. It's very, very smooth, and it you can drink
Good
it on
for
the rocks.
cocktails.
But the interesting thing is when you distill something, you end up with a very, very alcoholic portion, and you also end up with a non-alcoholic portion. So we thought we'd make the most of it. And we've just recently released a low alcohol sparkling. It's a 2% because we've done a second fermentation inside the bottle to create the bubbles.
Wow.
And yeah, it drinks really well. So if you're after something that's low alcohol,
we could have gone like
Definitely not me.
1%, but it didn't have the body that we were after still, because a lot of low alcohol, it just tastes of nothing.
Yeah.
Whereas we wanted this to still taste of something.
Okay. So the process. So do you want to just? Have you got a couple more slides? Just want to.
Yeah, literally. We're big into collaborations and things. And you know when you get a overheated caramelized honey, and you think, what am I going to do with this? Well, we made beer with it. I
don't ever have that. No.
Never ever. But it's actually a really good use.
Yeah. Really, really nice.
Brilliant.
So
so to ask there's two questions I'd like to ask. First of all is tax. How does beekeepers then, when you go into Mead, deal with that? Do you have to contact import or UMPO, we call it over here, but obviously it's obviously the license. You have to have a license to do that to produce alcohol, do you?
Yeah, they do like to take the fun out of things, and when you're in business, you get really sort of downbeat about how much tax.
Well,
you get sometimes,
I mean, it's one of those things. The problem with tax is that there's an expectation that you already know what you're supposed to do. There's no sort of like, oh, I didn't realize I had to do that. So there's loads of stuff you end up having to read up about and get set up with.
There's like in the UK, there's these government notices, and you just have to sit down and read it. It's really painful and horrible to read, but you have to read it to be able to understand what you have to do. And we've got loads of different licenses.
Yeah, I mean,
to do
personally, you have to have a personal alcohol license to actually personally be able to actually sell alcohol to somebody. Then you've got to have a premises license for your alcohol to be sold from your premises or even online. And then you've got an AWRS license.
You've got your license to actually produce an excise license. You've got your AWRS license.
If you like licenses, then Mead's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that I wanted to find out just about that, because I think if anyone's starting or wants to think that they can go into Mead, everyone can sell a bit here and there, can't they, to friends and that. And I think as a lot of people do that and they keep it for personal consumption. But I'm sure Her Majesty's tax office would be very interested in people that don't. And I think it's just really useful for us to know that there's people out there that have done it, but it is quite technical, isn't it? And you have to make sure you read everything, like you say.
We do get asked by people, oh, what do I need to do to start selling mead or whatever. And the difficulty at that point for us is that if people are asking us that at that point, it's really difficult to signpost somebody exactly all of the things that they need to do. You really just need to go on the government website and start reading.
And figure it out. And it's, you know what, it's a nightmare because it's the way that they write stuff is confusing, and you've really got to boil it down to what you actually need to do.
You've got to do your duty returns and everything, so it doesn't really just stop with the license. It's all the paper.
How often do you do your return? Sorry to interrupt. Is it a yearly or like a monthly or
monthly?
Even worse.
Get to the end of the month, I'm like, VAT duty.
We actually do have VAT monthly because of that as well.
We do.
Yeah, well, I've gone yearly purely because it's easier for me, and I've got an accountant to do it, and I don't have the turnover you do in different things. But I know monthly works for a lot of people because it's just money in, money out, and I think you have to keep that. Otherwise, the claim is like you can't wait a year, can you, to get it back? It's insane.
No. Well,
that's fascinating. The other question I had about the mead was the basic setup, and the machine is. Can you make? Another question: can you make mead in sparkling bottles without the way of removing with the ice plug? Can people do that?
Yeah,
Can you bottle
you
it up
can do it
afterwards?
that way, and you just need the sparkling wine bottles that are thicker glass so that they don't explode.
Oh, okay.
Try not to reuse them. Try to get them new, because when you've used them once, they do get hairline fractures in the glass. So the second time they're used, they can be weakened. So you can do that. You just put your mead in, your base mead in, and put some sort of sweetener in after that that's going to ferment, and possibly a bit of champagne yeast.
The amount of fermentables in that bottle at that time will create either too much alcohol, but it's the byproduct of fermentation is alcohol and CO2. So the more sweetness you have in there, the more CO2, and going into a confined space means more pressure. So if you don't control that bit, you could easily have bottle bombs.
But you can do it, and then you don't have to disgorge. You could leave the yeast in the bottle. You will end up with a cloudy mead.
But for the really skilled people, you can do a technique called avoile, which is, again, we're going back to Madame Clicquot here, like early days. You'd riddle, get the yeast down to the cap, and then what you have to do is, keeping the bottle upside down, you turn it with your crown cap remover, and just as the air bubble touches the yeast, you take the cap off. But if you're too slow, all the yeast goes back in the bottle, and then you start your 5-6 week process again.
Yeah, I see, right. So there's all these techniques that anyone just think they can make mead. It's not that simple. And I would say that, seeing the way you do it, I imagine that the way you bottle it and everything is quite precise, so that you get uniformity in your actual bottles. Because do you get bottle bombs every now and again and broken glass?
No. We've only had one in like 2,000 bottles, and it was a fault in the glass.
Yeah.
Really?
So, and that can happen. But like anything,
So in terms of consumables for your bottles, how do they compare with your jars? And that's a good question.
Price wise.
The bottles are so much more expensive.
Eye-wateringly so.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Especially since Brexit.
Yeah.
And are they like manufactured in the UK or imported?
Well, that was the funny thing.
They've only just started manufacturing them in the UK. There's a company that we met not so long ago, and they've just started doing it. They haven't actually done the first run. They had a prototype when we saw them, but before that, they were all imported. We used to get them from companies in France, but when Brexit happened, it became incredibly hard. And we got maybe a couple of pallets after Brexit, but we just ended up using a UK importer who was, like a middleman.
But even so, like the half-size bottles, we were doing there's the standard 75 cl and there's the 37.5 cl, and we've ended up at the moment, we've kind of shelved the half-size one for now, because the price has gone ridiculous, but equally supply, because a lot of the importers don't sit on those bottles, they don't hold them, so you've got one choice you can go to for them.
And in terms of your honey production, how many different size jars do you have?
We currently have three.
We will have, on the line there's two, and there's a third one about to join onto the bit. Now we've got the line. It's not as simple as just putting a cap on a jar.
This is exactly why I asked you that question, and this is exactly why I asked you about jars, because I have two sizes I sell. I do have a third one that I can use on I've got a swing tea bottling table, an 80 centimeter one. It works great for me. It's fairly automated, but nothing like you guys. And the minute I saw this on your Instagram, I'm like, I've got to see this working. So it works on two sizes. Is that because it's basically just better to have two simple sizes for it to work with?
Yeah, well, it's what we sort of had when we were ordering the machine, and then we were like, right, these are the caps and the lid sorter and the chute that comes on, and the lid fitting machine has to know what size it's working to, and then the labelers have to be set up for the right size and things. So it's just what we started with, but we do have an exciting new breakfast jar, like a 1 ounce jar that we're going to be able to do with this, because it'll do 1,000 jars an hour. So for doing a pallet of breakfast jars isn't going to be on the realms of possibility anymore, which is good, hopefully.
Good. Can we have a quick look at that now? Are you able to?
Yeah.
Because there's loads of questions I'm going to probably ask during the process, but for me, I find that one of the biggest problems when you set up something like this is you've got to feed. I've got an extraction line, but you've got to feed it to get everything out of there. You've got a bottling line. You've got to feed it, haven't you, to get everything to work?
We ended up getting a number of new tanks, and the reason for that was that once this is set up and running, and we also have different filling heads, so we can change a filling head and do a different variety after we've finished one. So this was off.
Is it? Have you got it on?
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, just to ask, do you want to maximize your screen?
Yeah,
and I think because you will get a little bit bigger. Yeah, I think
we can play little bits and
Just to ask, this is a Sweeney line or
Is it going to get any bigger?
Yes, it is Sweeney. Yes,
Sweeney,
and they were really good to deal with, really good. And the reason we sort of went with them because we were using the filling equipment like a small turntable to start with as well, and we've always found it really reliable. And the fantastic thing about these guys, when it came to commissioning it and installing it, they sent Palais over, who is their sort of head engineer. Palais made this lid fitting machine like from scratch. He's been with the company for ages, and you just feel like we were really, really well looked after. And nothing was too much trouble for them. The lid sorter is fantastic. When you're watching it go, and it's just sorting the lids to the right size and going on, and
it obviously must turn them to the right way. Up or down.
It's got a hump in it, so if it's facing the wrong way, it like falls off the little hump.
Yeah. And then the just on that lid machine, when you see the lid fitter actually putting the jars on, that's torqued to the right pressure. And the interesting thing is if a lid isn't right, sometimes you get a lid that just turns round too much. It will stop.
It doesn't grip. It just doesn't grip.
Yeah, it will stop the line and reject it because it detects that the torque pressure's out. So, in terms of confidence that each one of those lids is on correctly, it's brilliant.
Fantastic.
And then there's the labelers, which the labelers, to be fair, always take the most setting up, really. So but they're brilliant when they're going on, and now that the labeling side of it has been the biggest thing for us to actually get used to and comfortable with. But it makes a huge difference just being able to get them on. And also a lot of people just have one labeler on the line and have the tamper coming off with the body label, whereas we went for two labelers so that we had the flexibility to put tamper labels on, like this one, which is a bit unusual. I think a lot of people just go with the one labeler on the line, but it just gives us more flexibility.
I think that's absolutely amazing. I was just going to say, do you have a tamper line and a tamper label? And there it is. It's like,
and it's just it's a joy to see it. It's an absolute
it must be a real drag putting them into the crate at the end of the line. It just must be
you run off your feet.
Well, now we're looking at how do we actually package these up, and where's the next bottleneck, and we're putting all the honey into barrels now to process and pump, and we've got two 300 kilo tanks, a 300 kilo creamer, two 100 kilo tanks, and a 100 kilo creamer. It's keeping that honey in front of them, which is also sort of, it relates to the bees and where we're heading with that. The honey production we're quite happy with, but we're obviously looking to increase that, and we'd like to see us getting over 500 colonies this year for production, especially for heather, because heather's been quite poor yield the last few years, and we really want to try to increase our heather honey crop quite a bit, because we always sell out. I think we're about a month away from selling all our heather honey.
Really, that's a fantastic achievement to be able to shift everything that you sell. Everything that you sell, everything that you produce, in terms of honey. It's brilliant. So can we talk a little bit of figures, a rough kind of figure of what so you had a bottling machine before, like mine, a Sweeney. What kind of you looking at when you invest in something, just as a ballpark rough figure, so people have some idea?
What was it?
How much is a kidney nowadays?
Oh, that's pretty cheap then. That's pretty cheap.
The sort of thing you need to get a grant for.
Yeah. Well, this is it. And this was the problem actually to start with, because we were involved with our local council and we were made aware that there was a grant available. And, you know, a jarring line wasn't on our radar at that time, but it was suggested that this is the sort of thing that it might do. And actually, the initial first few months was us actually getting our head around how much it might actually cost, because there was other makes out there that were like £20,000. And we're like, oh, right, okay, but then there's other ones. And then you start adding things onto it, like labelers and the lid fitting machine. And then you're like, actually, yeah, it's all starting to add up. But each one is so very much bespoke. You know, for people that have one label applicator, it's going to be a lot less than somebody that has two.
That's true.
And but it's not all. It's also not just the line, because then it's the tanks. And then it's, you know, is your air compressor big enough?
A lot of stuff in, yeah.
Everything kind of compounds, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really, to be fair, it can be as big or as little as you want it to be. And, you know, you can get secondhand stuff, you know, and I saw somebody the other day and it sort of makes you wince a bit, because we spent a lot on it, even though we had this support from the grant. And then somebody comes along and says, oh, I bought a label in line for £2,000 the other day. I'm like, really? That's a really good price. But then that's not been set up to fit in with everything, and you haven't had the support, and you know, so you can go as big or small as you want.
I imagine there is this kind of thing where you've got to be all in to benefit from everything. You can't expect people who are supplying it to say, well, where did you get that from? Oh, I got this one from another country. And it'll work, and it doesn't. I know what you're saying exactly. You kind of, I mean, I had to buy a tank for I use barrels as well, and I bought a tank to feed my bottling machine. But the tank I needed was, you know, I'm good mates with Ollie, and he had one, so I had to get the one he had. But it was actually the right one for the bottling machine. So now we can, but like what you kind of said, you've got to have all the bits around it to make it work, and that's what you've done, and that's why it's such a kind of, for me. A great example of what can be achieved with everything working properly. It's a lot of money, but it's now you're going to reap the rewards, because you're going to probably be able to keep the same amount of staff, maybe even get rid of one.
No. Well, this is the thing, Richard, because you might think that, and actually part of the grant conditions is that, you know, we're providing employment, which is, you know, it almost counterintuitive when you just think of it as an efficiency saving. But for us as a growing business, our pinch points are actually they weren't in the honey room. They were in the cosmetics and the beeswax candles and all of that. So what this is actually doing is it's actually helping that side of the business really very well, because what we would do in 3 or 4 days jarring is now taking us 1 day every 2 weeks. So then, you know, we have actually taken staff on,
freed up a lot of time in other areas, so it's been really
brilliant. And
you've got to trying to grow.
No, sorry. In terms of you just said you're trying to grow. Are you looking for, like, do you have to work hard to find extra markets, or is it what you've got is sufficient? It's almost difficult to maintain that.
No, we do work to new markets as well. It's both really. I mean, we produce. You know, we sell a lot straight to the customer online and things, but we're always looking for new sort of, you know, wholesale and trade contacts, because I mean, you need to have all these strings to your bow, really, and we do want to grow, but
it's interesting what the jarring line does as well, in that, you know, the question's been raised to us, oh, well, why don't you jar for other people now? And, you know, that opens that avenue up. And it's not something that we do a bit of own label, really small runs for certain people that we, you know, work with the bees or whatever. But it's not something that we've really opened the taps on at the moment. And it's interesting hearing other people's opinions about that. There'd be a lot of people say, well, just keep it for your competitive advantage now that you've got it, and just use it for yourself. But we do also have the option, if we want to actually start jarring for people.
It's quite nice, because it's opened up a lot of options.
Yeah, good. 2,500 queens a year. Let's change, because we spent a lot of time on this already, and we've got loads to talk about because you've got so many good things in your business. 2,500 queens a year, apodeias.
Yeah.
Tell me what that's like to juggle all that, because apodeias I know are tiny little boxes, and you've got to shake them out in the summer. How many kind of rounds do you get out of your apodeias each year? What do you look at? When do you hope to start?
Yeah, it's huge. You know, put it this way: if this was June, you wouldn't be speaking to me right now because we'd be working. But they are. We went with apodeias because certainly, as opposed to other brands that have the ventilation underneath, we were finding that the apodeias, just for our management strategies, ventilate really well. We can stock them well. It sort of seems to just work with the climate in Northumberland that we've got. We find them quite straightforward for stocking, have fairly good success rates. And I think depending on the length of the season, how long we can go before wasps start getting to be a potential problem or the weather shuts down, in a good season, we get 4 from an apodeia. I think the average we sort of try and work to is 3.5, whatever the half is.
But it's hard work. I was thinking about it last night, and we've got to prepare the apodeias, and that 700 of them to do. So we've got to put fondant in them. We've got to get the frames in them. We've got to get them ready. Then we've got to stock each one. Then we've got to go back in and put a cell in each one. We put cells in usually. Then we've got to go back and check the cells hatched. And then we've got to go and take it out into the mating apiary and put the things out. And then we've got to hope that it doesn't rain for 2 weeks. And then we've got to go back and see if any of them are mated and find that, 20% have buggered off.
But the thing is, I mean, it sounds like a lot of work, and it is, but various things that we've done right from the offers, palletizing things, like hugely important. And people initially looked at us with a Toyota Hilux with a flatbed, towing around a plant trailer with an Avant loader on, thinking, why are you doing that? Because that's surely you're dragging something around. But actually, what it means is, we've handled those apodeias, we've stocked them, for example. They'll go onto a pallet. We'll leave a gap between them so we can spray them. They'll be all strapped up. The next time we have to touch those, we'll be out in the field. But guess what? We're not gathering them off the truck. We have the loader which will take this pallet of apodeias off and drive around the apiary, and we'll
actually have a video of that. Do you want me to show it?
It sounds a bit like a fisherman with lobster pots. Literally, they're just like, as you drive along, you just throw them out. Kind of like.
Yeah,
I do actually, because I thought it would be. Okay. I thought it might come up.
That'll be good to see that.
And it's interesting because everything. I joke that if I could be palletized, I should be. This is something that we had on social. No, it's not that one. It's not that one. No.
Where is it gone? Social media. Oh, that's annoying. Maybe I don't have it.
Maybe not.
I had it earlier.
Yeah.
But I don't have it.
Don't
now.
worry about it.
Sorry.
Yeah. Unshare.
No problem.
So, but it's looking at all of these stages and thinking, why am I doing this? Am I doing this twice when I could be doing it once? And it's interesting with the breeding work and the instrumental insemination. We do a lot of that. I can inseminate a queen probably in about 2 minutes flat. But we have Gary and Penny, who are, expert queen breeders who have come over consulting us from New Zealand. And when, for example, when they started doing this, they looked at us and we were putting virgin queens into the apodeias because that was the right thing to do, I thought. And then Gary just turned around and said, why are you doing that? You've got 3 stages to your process. You're emerging these in the incubator, then you're taking the cages out, you're handling the queens, putting them in. Why don't you just put a cell in it? No, I just thought, absolutely right, because that's removing a stage.
It always takes someone to come in from a completely different place and go, what are you doing that for? And you go, oh yeah, it's just
and
actually,
the
way you've done it,
in a strange way, as we're putting those apodeias out, we just check to see if the cells emerged. We then know if that queen's taken.
Well, yeah, when we do that, we have a load of spare cells with us,
and if it's
all
not
virgins, and if it's not hatched for whatever reason, we can then rectify it. Otherwise, we wouldn't find out until we checked again.
Yeah, and so little things.
Carry on.
No, just little things like that make a huge difference.
So you're grafting from when do you generally start grafting? When is it kind of you deem good enough to think that in 16 days there might be some drones flying around? And
yeah, it's mid-April that we usually start, but it is a bit weather dependent. So we've got it as soon as we get a nice warm weather window in April, around mid-April, we'll be prepped and we'll get some colonies in. It's some queenless ones.
Funny, our setup, our unit as we call it, we have cell building colonies at the back of there. And because it's south facing, where the colonies are, they're actually on the north side, and the sun will only actually hit the back there where we're going to put colonies mid-April. And it's quite a good break that goes on us, because it means that we bring the colonies in and we're forced not to try and do that too early because the sun's not there. And it's really quite good, that, because I think you can go too soon. You can go way too soon, and you don't need to be the first one to.
No, I don't need to be like spending all that time, making a colony queenless and grafting into it to have a really poor take because I've done it too soon. I need to be having a take that's about 100%, and then I can repeat that day to day until. It's quite.
I was going to go for 96%, but pretty good. If that's the standard, then fair play to you. You know what I mean?
Well, the problem, it comes back to the whiteboards again and the Kiwis' competitiveness, because it's always about what was the percentage.
The whiteboards?
We don't have to. It's top secret stuff, but effectively,
not really.
Every graft gets a percentage take at each stage, from starter to finisher to and it gets fairly competitive within yourself, and you then know. I mean, we always work to 70% failure at each stage, because that is about right, really. And so then you know how much you're going to end up with. But it's just nice to know when things are going well, and it's really good keeping track of the percentages, and you can suddenly figure out what a problem is and deal with it quite quickly.
Yeah, we had a bad year a couple of years ago, and it was just really cold. And the percentages, we could hardly get them above 50%. It was a joke. Yeah, we had a great year on it last year. Last year was really good.
Don't say that.
No, really good for grafting. That's what I'm getting at.
You never say it's been good.
I agree. I mean, I've had years myself. I'm not, the number one queen producer, but I tend to get uniformity from year to year, because I've kind of got a good idea what to do now. I've just got my setup better here now. I've got place for my incubators now and all that, and the new honey house. So I'm really looking forward to start a bit earlier this year to give it a go, because I always find myself caught in that, do I graft in end of July, August? Am I going to get away with it? And it's always a gamble. And the queens I've got from that have done well, but I just think that getting those young drones up in the air in like June, end of May, June, those first ones you get just seem to be the best. I don't know what it is, but I don't know how you feel about that.
That's our next job, like literally right now, is we're getting drone base into the drone mothers. We're doing things a little bit differently this year. In previous years, we've always maintained drone mother colonies in apiary sites with the breeders in the colonies that are producing the drones, and those drones fly from there. And I think we're going to look to work more sort of as nukes that are acting as drone banks, and have the drone mothers out in the field with the drone frames in it, and that's going to then get moved to drone banks. In fact, we probably don't have enough time to go into it, but I think it's going to work a lot better for us, that sort of system, because you find that the burden that's placed on a colony to actually maintain drones in a significant number, like 2 to 3 frames worth of drones, is quite huge. And actually, you don't really put that pressure on your breeders. You don't really want to do that.
And if it's a rubbish year, it's even harder. So
I've seen you marking your drones with the pen. That's obviously for your dates, for removing the insemination, for all that. I just, what I didn't ask was that when we came on was how many staff have you got working for you? Because you can't do it all yourself, can you?
When they enjoy it, Richard, you can hardly call it work.
I know. I do know that. You know, I know that.
And they all love it.
Yeah.
We've got
Suzanne. She does.
She's production
manager. So she works full time. Has worked for us for a number of years.
We've got Alison, who's just joined as a production assistant to help Suzanne.
Yeah.
And then we've got Lucy, who's head of sales. And then we've got Jess, who's just started to help Lucy. So we've sort of the way we set it up, because inherently finding beekeepers who are local to you that know commercial beekeeping or want to work as a commercial beekeeper is relatively hard. And it is a really hard job. So we've tried to increase the efficiencies in what we do and make sure that our unit can run without me and Susie in it, so that we can actually go out and do all the beekeeping, because that's really the foundation of the whole business.
So is it you and Susie that basically do the beekeeping most of the time?
Yeah, it is.
We've had bee farming apprentices through, and things like that.
Yeah, but, bits of help and things through the season. But yeah, we find it hard to recruit apprentices for the beekeeping because we're in rural Northumberland. There's hardly anybody here, and then you need to find somebody who wants to keep bees. And then usually what happens is they come and they really want to keep bees, and then a few months down the line they're like, "Ooh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be." Yeah, I get that.
And then it's like, you might have a week of really bad weather in the middle of June, and then it turns out that weekend you need to get round stuff, and then but they've got plans, which is normal. Like, that's allowed and it's normal, but it's just like dealing with all of that is really tough for people.
So it is hard, and as you know, in the summer you're out working late every night. I mean, how do you manage to do that? And have you got grandparents, parents that help out with your kids, or we do have some tether them down for a couple of hours,
Yeah, we do have some great grandparents, but they don't live on our doorstep. They're both of them are over an hour away. So when we sort of plan for childcare, Luke's mum's pretty good. She'll come up and stay with us for a period of time. My parents are actually farmers, and they're sort of trying to get out of it now, but they do still have some animals, so they can be a little bit tied up at times. But what usually ends up happening is we'll both go out and do the beekeeping jobs. I will leave at 2:30 to go pick the children up. I'll pick the children up, take them home and sort them out, and then see Luke whenever.
But we can get an incredible number of colonies done then. And the thing with how the queen side of it works with the honey production colonies, we're careful about what days we graft on. So again, with having a whiteboard, you can make sure that you're not grafting on X day, because you might have to put cells out on Saturday, or something that you don't want to do on that particular day. But also timings wise, it does all come down to efficiencies. And what I can't ever sort of really fully understand when people are working so hard is things like this is an example, feeding bees, right? So you have an IBC tank full of syrup, and then what do? You decant that into 14 kilo jerry cans, and then you put that on your truck, and then you take that out, and then you feed your bees. Or you go down the Bob Binney method and have a pump with a hose reel that is hang on, like, how long does it take you to fill 14 kilo drums from an IBC tank? It's going to take you an hour or 2 hours. But if this is all pumped, it's suddenly taking you 10 minutes, and you're already halfway through your feeding. And so, we've had that, again.
We just push forward with efficiency, to be honest with you, because we just don't have the time to not.
You don't realise it, but also, the queen thing, the caging of queens. I don't know whether people use the Ecrotech cages from New Zealand, but we had to get a pallet of 10,000 of these cages shipped in, because the cages that have the sliders on, I timed how long it took us to mark and cage a queen in one of the cages that slides. And it was something like 25 seconds, something like that, marking and caging a queen. Oh, you'd be like, that's really good. Well, the Ecrotech cage, 6 seconds. Do you know what that did this year? It gave me a weekend back.
Wow.
And so if you start looking at it like that, and, the Ecrotech cage is the sort of the fold, and it's one-handed caging, and you can actually stock those with nurse bees in advance.
It's a job that I used to dread, having to go out and cage up like 200 queens or something at a time. I'd be like, oh
Yeah.
god, it's gonna take ages. But now we're flying. Two of us doing
Brilliant.
it.
A joke on our Kiwi WhatsApp. Say to Gary that the Kiwis and the Ecrotech cage has saved our marriage.
I was going to say, I, with all this beekeeping and the work you do together as both beekeepers, I'm like staggered you're actually talking to each other at this point. You know, because
we're talking now. We usually shout at each other.
Sorry,
for the rest of the season. Yeah. I can no, but I mean it is stressful, and there's all these other dimensions to the business that you've got to deal with and and work out. But I suppose actually, if you're just doing the bees and you get on with it and you become efficient at doing it, it's I try and do the same. You do things one year and you go next year. Well, if I get my nukes all back together, for example, and I move them all at the same time, I haven't got to move them twice. Or when you put something down, do you want to put it down somewhere where it's not going to be moved afterwards? And you don't have to move it twice. It's actually a fundamental thing to think about everything you do in your honey house, because you end up creating work for yourself just by moving things twice.
It's really frustrating.
Would you like us to show you how we move things?
I'll tell you.
You want to show me your you've got the trailer, haven't you? You can show that.
Yeah.
Right?
But this is all getting a bit changed up because we've been working on a Unimog for a whole year, which is going to be the world's best Unimog when it comes out. Yeah, ever. It's going to be just but the interesting thing that there's, again, I mean, we'll talk through it as we go through it, but we've got an Avant loader, an Avant 423 that works really well. It's got the Avant beehive mover on it. I'll talk you through the limitations as well.
Obviously, Avant is French, I would guess, yeah.
It's Finnish.
Oh, it's Finnish, is it? I stand corrected. I apologise.
Yeah, very
good. I thought
good.
it was because a lot of beekeepers in France have these. A lot.
Yes, but they're really good. But that beehive mover, for example, really limited, because if you want to go from moving singles to doubles, you have to get off and move a pin on that mast to change the setting because of the travel of the ram. So literally, I've just got that sorted to have a 2-stage acting ram, because then it'll go the full height without having to change that pin. And I know, again, that's sort of like people will probably not bother with that, but actually,
but when it's 11 p.m. on a Heavenmore and you have to change the height of the ram,
you don't want to have to get off the machine to do that. You don't want to have to get off the machine to do it, and then you can just gently push them.
If people don't know, the Avant actually folds in the middle, doesn't it? Bends.
Yeah, articulates.
So you can see the turning circle there. Is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. It's fun to learn to drive to start with, because you'll have probably not driven anything quite like it. But we actually started with an Avant 220, which is the really small one, the ones that you can easily tip over. But it's a really good one to learn on, because if you do tip it over, it's petrol, so you can just upright it and get going again. Whereas if you tip a diesel over, it's a little bit more of a problem. So speaking from experience, it's good at with the clamps that it just closes down, secures the hives nicely. So I've been optimistic there, picking 4 at a time. I mean, if you were double stacking, you could pick 8.
What's the lift capacity on the one you've got now?
God, you're telling me now. I think easily it will do 400 kilos, 500. You won't want to go that much higher than that.
But in terms of hives, that's sufficient. Yeah,
exactly. And you see, the thing is, you can go for a 500 series that will lift a ton, but then you're adding a lot more weight on. And as I'm finding with the Unimog, because we've developed the Unimog that will have a hydraulic rear lift platform on. Oh, the smoker's attached to that hive there. I never even noticed that. Oh, there we go, gently. But weight is actually fairly significant, even for a 14-ton Unimog. But it's I think have enough for what you need rather than excessive. But this actually reminded me as well, what these Avants have is a whole range of attachments. And when we got this one, it came with a flail mower, which was fantastic. So this site, we'd already been through and flailed this rather than having really long grass. And
we've had to do that with a couple of sites this year, because we found that, well, especially last year, ticks were just, a nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, you did.
For the first time. And then I looked it up.
We were fine once we got all the grass down.
But I looked it up, and apparently there was some research done in Canada or I can't remember the paper now, but it was something like 1 in 3 Canadian commercial bee farmers, tested for Lyme's disease or something.
Yeah, but do you know the cure for Lyme's disease?
Mead? No, I don't know.
No, it's apitherapy. One of the best cures. Yeah, literally, a course of apitherapy will cure Lyme's disease. But
so this is quicker
yeah,
because
I do not jest. I couldn't believe it myself. But there you go. That's probably why you've never had Lyme's disease. They've been bitten by ticks loads of times.
Yeah, yeah.
I get bitten a couple of times every year, and it's shocking how they literally will climb up your legs and go.
Yeah.
And then you're scratching the leg. What the hell's that? And you're like, oh my God, there's something living in my leg.
Yeah, I know. It's not nice. But,
no, it's gross. I was just going to point out about the Avon, because I've looked at prices myself, and you can get, like you said, the smaller versions that lift up to maybe 400 kilos. And I think that for most people with a small operation, that'd be sufficient. Because if you are going to bring out a tote or an IBC, you can load it up at your workshop with your forks.
Yeah.
And then you can leave it on your truck and bring it back on your truck. And even if it's empty or nearly empty at the end, you could use your Avon to unload it. But my point is, you don't really have to have anything heavier, do you, for your apiary?
So all of these colonies are moved open as well. So you'll see that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because. And again, when we're at a site, we just
that's all they ever do. They just come out a bit.
Well, if they're all inseminated, they do exactly what they're told, don't they? So let's face it,
But, you just it's been a lot less stressful actually moving them open, to be fair.
Really?
Yeah, when we first moved them open, we were really apprehensive about it. Now I'd be apprehensive about moving them shut.
Yeah, because if a box slips or slides, or as they invariably will do, if you've got them sealed up, the bees are going to want to be out straight away. But if they're already open, they don't.
They seem to settle
bother as
really
much.
quickly.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, obviously, I follow Ian Stepler, and he does it all open most of the time. I don't know, he often has temperature on his side, but what kind of temperature is it here you're moving? Is it just the end of the day, just like 12, 10 degrees?
No, this
like
was
that?
coming back from the heather.
It's probably about 6 or 8.
Oh, it was really
6
cold.
degrees.
We rescued these from a moor because it was so wet and horrible up there.
So they are probably not inclined to fly.
No, not particularly.
No, they're not like they're going up to the heather massive colony. These are, starting to wind up for winter.
Yeah. So but it's quite. I mean, it makes the moving thing a lot more enjoyable. You sort of, because moving bees is really hard work. I love a bee farmer's quote that I got once that said the best way to move bees is with 2 people, both of whom aren't him, which I thought is just like sums it up really. But this does make it slightly more enjoyable, what I dare say, but it's not kind of really enjoyable.
Well,
but
it is when you've loaded a full load in about 15 minutes and strapped the Avant back onto the trailer and we're pulling out the site, because we used to handball them on when we first started.
Well, that's it. And I mean, I'm looking at the time on the video and we're up 6 and a bit minutes in, and we've nearly unloaded everything.
Yeah.
So it's out, and your back's not bad. So in fact, the Avant's got a heated seat.
No way.
Because they'll all be wanting to go, but
that is like living the dream, I think you'd say. But to kind of get to this level, you obviously need a fair few hives to sustain that. I mean, you're totally aware of what you need to do, and you've made it streamlined, and that fits into your kind of recipe. You have to have that. Just to ask, how big is your trailer? If you
that's an LM147 Ifer Williams, so it's 14 foot. It actually is the similar deck size to what our Unimog's going to be. So it will fit 32 hives on.
Yeah.
So on a single layer. But I hate trailers for moving bees. I just absolutely hate anything to do with trailers and moving bees. I tried to not put bees on a trailer if at all possible, because I just they always no matter how good the suspension is, they'll always jingle them around a bit too much for me.
Yeah.
So,
or is it that you're just useless at reversing? And
that's right. Well, you just go flat out everywhere.
You only do bees on trailer if you can drive in and drive out in the same loop.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that, isn't it? No, that is absolutely sweet. I mean, there was a couple of times, my ex-colleague has helped me out with his loader just to do things like that, and I know so you're not breaking your back, you're not getting tired at that time of the year when you're always tired anyway, and it's so important to have things put in place. I've got one other question that's been nagging me, and I want to ask you, right? Take this with a kind of pinch of salt. So one year you decide not to sell queens, you put them all into nukes, and you sell them all the following spring with a little pile of bees around that queen, and you make an awful lot more money. Have you ever thought of doing that?
So tempting, Richard. Are you wanted to buy these nukes?
No. My point is, I used to raise queens in Mini Plus, and to me, I was spending too long just doing the Mini Plus for a day and not having more than 2 or 3, maybe 4 queens throughout the year. And then you suddenly think, hang on a minute, if I put a cell in a nuke with partitions in, that's a small nuke, and then I let it grow, the following year I've got not just a queen, I've got a nuke to sell. And for me, the economics were better. I know. So I know people are going to say to you, "We don't do that because we want to buy your queens." And you've just
destabilised the whole of the queen industry in the UK.
Yeah,
just take them offline.
But I think it's almost like the Mead. We enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I think we do enjoy doing it. We do that for our own production. So we have setups where we've got 2 frames where we drop a cell in and we grow that up into a colony for winter, but it'll be for our own stock replacement. So we do a lot of that already. We if I'm absolutely honest, I really don't like selling nukes.
Okay.
Because I just love the bees too much,
well,
and I'm fully aware of the honey crop that nuke could produce for us if we were keeping it.
Well, this is it. When
I get my calculator out and I don't stop at nuke, I stop at 2 seasons of honey, and I think that's better.
I personally think of 2 nukes from that colony and 2 4 honey crops, because it's 2 years. But it it very often isn't that. But that's what you like to think it is. While we're on the subject, your nectar flows, we didn't cover that. You obviously have a spring flow, I imagine. When and what is your summer flow where you are?
Well, where we are, spring consists of a lot of hawthorn, a tiny bit of like sycamore and things in it, oilseed rape naturally, and we'll harvest that at the end of May, start of June. Then we go on to the summer crop, which literally varies every year. So like last year, we didn't get any lime tree honey. We got mainly bramble and clover.
And then this year it was Phacelia.
There's a lot of Phacelia this last year.
Really?
And then after that, we obviously take them to the heather.
And we've had two poor years on the heather, really, with droughts and heather beetle. So it seems like the heather beetle issue's been just creeping further north up the country, and Scotland apparently is relatively not as affected, I think, from a honey production perspective. But we've been starting to see heather beetle cropping up.
Been pretty bad with us. It was really poor crop last year for heather. We got what we did, but I mean, I think we only got about 2 ton of heather last year. Was it 4?
4, yeah.
Oh. So it was low down on what we would usually get. So we don't take any bees to borage or anything like that, but no pollination. There's none of that up here. We don't move them around the country to do it either.
So all your hives are also static where they are, would you say? most of them, apart from the ones
static-ish.
They're grouped up for winter. Then we spread for like the spring and the summer. They'll stay in the same sites for spring and summer. And we're also moving around for the queen rearing stuff. But then we'll try and take last year it's about 200 that we took to the heather.
Wow. That's a lot.
But importantly, when we're moving stuff, we're really, because Northumberland is actually one of those few places where, touch wood, brood disease, foul broods are virtually unheard of. It's like, if that was, you'd have to go back 20 or 30 years to find like a very isolated case on the edge sort of thing. And we stay well clear of moving to any areas where there might be a risk of anything like that. So it is really keeping us confined within the areas that we know are good, because especially when you're doing queens and you're doing nukes, and that's really important. You know, we're quite good on that, really, that we're not going very far, and we're lucky, you know, from Haltwhistle, we're you know, our nearest heather site is, well, the bees can fly from our unit to the heather, so
Brilliant.
it's really close.
Yeah.
They always tell us when the flow's starting.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So yeah, if you,
Yeah.
I think you'll probably smell the flow, will you, before you
Yeah.
even look at it? Yeah, because I mean, I know the smell of heather honey. It's just absolutely wonderful, isn't it? When you go, this could be good, and you get all excited, and the dribble comes in.
And it rains for 4 weeks.
It's not the first time.
Yeah.
I can count on one hand. Probably
We've had, there was one year.
How many good years we've had.
1 year where you wish you already had 500 colonies.
Yeah,
and
there's most years are a bad year on the heather. Yeah.
The bees have to be super, super strong. Like, there's no point in taking anything that's even marginal.
And it's so different between different sites. Like, some years you'd be like, wow, that site was amazing, and then the following year it's pants.
Really.
It's just
Really?
Different. We're lucky we have two different sort of soil types where we are. There's more rocky, really high up moors, but they're really quite susceptible to drought. Then we've got some really peaty moors that are really quite good at holding moisture. And so it depends where, you know, we'll look at the weather, see how much rain there's been, where we're going to, you know, heavier load colonies versus, you know, not really put any. I mean, in this year, there was 4 or 5 sites that we just didn't take bees to, because we just there was no point.
There's just too much bees. Yeah.
So, extraction of your heather honey, you have a
do you want me to show you?
You've got one of those
needleless
honey.
Yeah,
needleless. What do you call it? It's a this one I'm looking for. Sorry,
needler.
Yeah, needler. And is that unique? You use that for all your honey, or
we do now actually?
New ones that do that now.
It seems to be quite popular, the needlers, for all the uncapping, because we use it for the summer as well. Our whole system works off the air-driven Swainty needler, and then 2 big swing basket extractors, because we have to use swing baskets for the heather anyway. We can just talk about it if you want.
Well, I could get it on.
Okay.
It's just a little short.
Sorry, guys. We'll be fast forwarding. We use this in our tasting room. And then, once we've got it back, we'll show you. So one of the main things that we found excellent in the honey room is the honey wax separator that Carl Fritz do. So that, this honey extraction process, you'll see in a minute the needler and the extractors, but then also the honey wax separator. So that's the needler or loosener. Press a button and then it shifts the frame along, piercing the cappings, agitates the honey in the case of heather, which makes it run because it's thixotrophic. But in all other cases, it just takes the cappings away. You don't get much wax from this process, though, and that is a bit of a problem. But also a blessing in some ways. Depends which way you view it. But
obviously, people who don't know, if they're just watching this from outside and they're not a beekeeper, if you use this method for extraction, you actually end up with more honey each year because your bees don't have to repair the frame so much. So technically, they don't have to burn so much. Because what's the conversion for
8 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of beeswax?
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of energy they have to use to make beeswax. So the theory is, if you don't damage your combs too much, you actually end up with a lot more honey. And a lot of people who now have gone over to the needler for all their summer are actually ending up with no wax to make candles with, but loads and loads more honey. So it's interesting.
So so this is the honey wax separator, and it's one of those pieces of kit that you wish you had when you started, because we'd been using filters. People use a lot of sumps and pumps, and this literally, the honey out of the extractor goes into this hopper into the bottom of this honey wax separator, and it's picked up through these ascension tubes into the 2 buckets in the middle. And because honey wax floats on top of honey, especially when it's spinning around, the centrifugal forces force the wax onto the top layer of honey in these buckets. There's then another tube lower down, which the honey can escape up through these 2 ascension tubes, which are depositing the honey into this well at the top of the wax separator. So you end up with that honey with wax in it, and then here clean honey. So you can actually genuinely say that your honey isn't filtered at all. So it's just
is it the same principle as actually a spin float? Is that the same?
Yeah, same thing really.
It's just a different way it's working.
Yeah, and you just look at it and you watch it working, and you still don't really fully understand how it works. But it's that incredible German engineering that's got into it. And for the price point of that, and I can't really remember what we paid for it, but let's say £5,000, and you think what you'd spend on an appy melter and all of these other things, and you just think that piece of kit is just phenomenal value for money.
Yeah,
what you're getting.
It is, absolutely. So question just coming, how much honey do you harvest per year with 300 hives? Just as a ballpark figure.
12 to 15 tons last year was our sort of thing. We'd like to get up to saying about 20 tons this year with 500.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's quite a lot of honey.
Yeah, it is. But
they do barrels that hold 300 kilos roughly each one? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And now you've got the ability to stack those as well. Yeah. So do you have a separate storage area controlled, or is it? How does that work for you?
We've got our whole unit, 500 meters squared, is split in half really, with production and clean rooms, office in the middle, and then warehouse, beekeeping, supers, honey storage. So it's all just stacked up there. And frankly, we're running out of room.
Yeah, because when I was looking at doing models for mine, I thought that I had way too much space and all that. Okay, I've got the mezzanine, which does give me loads more now. But you basically need 1.5 square meters per hive on average to work a hive, they say. So if you think about it, you're over the limit anyway.
Yeah. We have started going up, and then the only thing we haven't done is go down. We might need a cellar.
Really? Yeah. Well, me putting this mezzanine in was like the best thing I ever did, because I got back my floor space that I'd lost to all the rooms, and big expense, but actually money for money, it's really good value. Really good, because it's just so amazing, to have that. I'll put it upstairs out of the way, and it's just gone.
You don't have to look there anymore.
Out of sight, out of mind.
I mean that's fascinating. I was going to ask you about feeding. So what you're looking at when you've done your harvest? Do you have to generally feed much, or you do get a bit of an autumn nectar flow or something like that?
Not a lot. We tend to feed at the back end when they're on ivy, because we never, ever get a crop of honey that we can harvest that late off the ivy or anything. No. So once they're back off the heather, it's 1 to 1.5 with thymol. We do the 1.5 because, again, going back to Bob Binney's method, that the pump that we've got, which is the same as his, an electric one, it handles that thickness of syrup really well. Not so much with 2 to 1, but we don't tend to find that there's much of an issue with the 1.5 to 1. And it just, and we've fed a little bit of fondant over winter to some of the smaller stuff, but in generally, touch wood, they've needed really little feeding. Now that we've been able to go around with a hose and everything and get the feeding really exactly at the right time, it's been really good. The colonies just, when they say that, spring feeding should be done in autumn, and we're really seeing the benefits of that now. When we're starting March, not worried about it.
I've got a counter argument about that, because now I'm taking out my autumn feed. But we had an amazing autumn flow, which was so prolific. We had facile everywhere at the right time in August, after a little bit of rain, and then we had the ivy flow as well. It all kicked in. So today I was out. This one I look so presentable. Today we're literally taking out like 2 or 3 slabs of honey from each colony, and it's just like unbelievable. But it gives me feed for nukes in the summer. But I treat them with that chemical Bacillus thuringiensis that stops wax moth, because if I don't, they'll be fine, and I'll check, and they'll be fine, and I'll check, and they're fine, and I'll check again, and they'll be like cotton
Riddle.
wool everywhere. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
in
yeah.
that instant you forget, and the time just seems to go. You know, when you get like you know, when you're a beekeeper, the time between like the first week of April and suddenly August is like, why am I in August? It's like suddenly you just forget everything. And yeah. So I use that spray. What's it called? I've got it over there, I think.
I don't know that we can use anything like that.
There is a spray. I got it here.
All right.
I bought
Can
a
we
little
use that in
bottle
the
this
UK?
year.
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about
It's Sertan.
Yeah, we can't use that in the UK. I'm fairly certain.
Because it is licensed for Europe, and it's definitely licensed for Canada, I know. So I thought I'd try, but what I actually used to use, there was believe it or not, it's a garden centre rose spray that's just purely organic, and the only ingredient was Bacillus thuringiensis spores. And for years, I used to spray my swarm traps frames with this. So if you ever get any wax moth going towards your swarm traps, because I used to do all that years ago, I gave that up ages ago because it's just too much work. And the bees you got were really not very nice. As soon as you start raising your own bees, you go out of all that. But this stuff is brilliant. So if anyone out there is looking to stop wax moth in their frames that they're storing, spray it. You don't need a lot on, just literally a couple of puffs and a hand sprayer, and you can then stop any emerging wax moth developing and munching through your frames. So the next question was, someone just said we can't use Sertan in the UK.
Yeah.
My next question was, how do you store your supers? Dry or wet?
Well, wet.
Try and store them wet.
Yeah, there is some that will be dry, but they go on these. We had these pallets made that fit 4 boxes on a horizontal and then stack up, and then they get wrapped to stop any wax moths getting in.
We're quite efficient at getting everything wrapped up straight after heavy honey extraction, and so there's no chance of anything getting in.
We don't tend to find any issues with the wet frames. It's any brood frames that you store that got any pollen in.
Yeah, we've only had it like once where we left a load of brood boxes sat in the unit, didn't we? It was in summer, it was in like the beekeeping season, this little stack was just there, and then we went to move it and we were like, oh, it's riddle.
Do you know, 1 year freezing often works, and we had everything palletized and we had a bit of the wax moth building up, and then we had this forecast of like -16 degrees for like a week or something. I was like, I forklifted everything out of the unit.
Really?
And put it outside because it was like, it's a freezer.
Yeah, it is.
And it seemed to really help.
Yeah. So a question just come in. What is your swarm management method? How do you get through that period the best way that works for you?
So the bees, as we go through each year, generally we find that the bees become more and more amenable with further breeding to be less swarmy, which is a really important thing. We've actually gone from over the years running double broods and trying all sorts of things to actually running everything now on single brood boxes, excluder and then supers. And the bees that we're now running are just really quite good at managing those boxes without really wanting to swarm. If we do find anything that's starting to raise cells, we'll give it a double brood box at that point and then plan to split that off quite soon after. So, but generally, if everything works right with the timings, they'll be run on singles. And then when it comes to pulling the honey, we'll clear those down into a double brood for the queen to lay. So you're sort of like the last week of the honey flow. She's given a second box to lay in. We clear them down into that. It'll be quite a full colony. But if we're going back fairly soon, what we try and aim for is that queen to be starting, the bees drawing that foundation out of that second box, the queen just starting to lay in it. That box then stays with the colony. The split box we take off with the brood in it that's sealed. So what you effectively end up with is your original colony with open brood and a queen. And it's actually then really quite a good point because you're pulling the honey supers off and you can then just give it a quick blast with some oxalic acid. And that there's no sealed brood. So it works brilliantly. And then the split goes off with the brood in it and drop a cell in it. And then on day 19, we then blast that with oxalic because then you've got all the brood emerged and a new queen just starting to lay, hopefully. And we found that that method of not only swarm control, but how we deal with Varroa, it's meant, we're doing mite washes in August on the heather, and we're not able to find any mites. So it's like that. It's just getting into that process, really, and not doing 2 visits again. So
you streamline your treatment. You streamline. I just got a cramp in my leg. Sorry. I've been on my feet all day. I just sat there.
You're just getting excited.
There it is again. You kind of streamline all those methods. I was going to ask. The next question was, do you use any chemical treatments for your Varroa control?
It would only be in like nukes that have not had the opportunity for the oxalic, really, that we'd feel any need to. With Apivar or something late on, but increasingly we're finding, we monitor it with the alcohol washers, and invariably we're finding that if you can nail the mites down with the oxalic in the summer, then you're fine until winter. But I think this is it. There's never a you could treat just for the sake of treating, but you got to know what you're actually treating for and why you're doing it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. More. I'm just going down the road of doing more vaporizing now throughout the year, because I've just gone over to the InstaVape Turbo.
Same.
Shameless plug again, but I used to have a Sublimox, which is like the Canadian and the American Pro Vape, which was it's 240 volts. So it all worked, and I had a transformer, an inverter for my truck. Not a problem, never ran the battery down. I had a long extension lead, it all worked. But it's just having something now that's even more modern that gives you that edge, just to literally have it in the van and go, right, I've just done all those hives. I know what I do. I'll give them a quick vape.
We just moved to that same vaporizer, and I'm actually the main thing that I'm disappointed at is that I think that my Sublimox won't actually. I've got 2 of them. If anybody wants to buy one,
no, you can't say that, because I'm trying to sell my 2 as well.
No, I think they've just been made effectively redundant, because the battery. We have the Dualt 5 amp hour batteries, and they're doing 20 hives per one, and so we take a few of those out, and it is just. There's 2 things that we found with that when we started using it. We were like, number one, I don't think we've been giving them enough oxalic before. I'd say that, because the instantaneous delivery of it and the amount of fumes that are coming out is just like incredible. No waiting for heating up, and then just the ease and the nimbleness of it. I think it's one of those products that I think I could just say they've done a good job. Like they've done a good job with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I had Janos on from Instant Vap about a month ago now, and then I met him at the Beekeeping show. An absolutely amazing guy, and he's so focused. And I found it really interesting that he had all the other models, and they all worked well. But he said to me, it was like an itch that he couldn't scratch, and he just went at it again, and he tweaked everything again, and that's when he ended up with a turbo, the type of metal, the alloy that is in the vaporizer, the insulation, the delivery tube, the battery. One thing I've gone over to is I had Makita batteries of mine, and I've got hold of one, believe it or not, with Parkside batteries. So if all the people out there don't know, I can show you. It's already here.
Of course you can. It's just there.
And I don't know if you've seen this as well, Luke, but whoops, there goes my plunger. So basically I've got the turbo, but I've got a Parkside battery for it, and this is a 12 amp. But the thing with the Parkside battery, right, and I know it's little, but they make really good batteries for their tools, and they're actually Bluetooth. This is a 12 ampere hour battery.
Wow.
So you can get like over 100 vapes on there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's really good.
It's like insane. So it's 20 volts, not 18.
Oh, right.
So when your temperature starts to dip, that extra bit of power literally means by the time, I was chatting to Janos about this, and he said to me, well, why don't you get 2 and you can run one alongside the other? I said, there's not enough time.
I know. It's almost solving a problem.
Before you put it in, it's done, Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, blink and you miss it, but we've loved it. Again, that's made it a lot more pleasurable, really. We've actually just changed up the entrances on the hives. We're trialing an underfloor setup, and that's got a hole at the back that the vaporizer fits into. And just with our pallet floors, it means that it's all dead easy to just seal in and then deliver the vaporizing. And always trying to look at those efficient ways of working.
Yeah. There is the thought as well now that just the presence of oxalic acid in the hive does other things as well. Not just kills the mites that it comes in contact with and burns their feet and they starve apparently, but apparently it does have some effect on. And I'm probably going to be picked up on this, but there's thought that it does have some effect on when the mite does or does not go under a capping. So the constant level, or the just some thoughts on it and the research they've done seems to upset that rhythm. And it's a bit like I do brood breaks, and I cage my queens in these cages every year, as many as I can, because we have that dearth. While you have the heather, we have the dearth. So I make use of that, and I kind of amplify what the bees are going through, so she can't lay a till. But even if I didn't treat the oxalic acid, just caging the queen sometimes, my point is, just by doing something, it has an adverse effect. It might not kill the mites, but because they're not reproducing at all for that period, it actually knocks them down. So there's so many things that you pick up by doing things like this, the live chats from other people that I didn't even know about, and fascinating when you're talking about your mites, how your levels are so low.
It's that transition when you're beekeeping, and I've seen it in myself over the last 10 years of being able to read a colony. And it's a very strange sort of thing to say that, but when I'm looking through a colony or we're looking under a box, I'm not just like looking at bees and getting bee blind. I'm going, how many frames of brood are there? What does that mean in 2 weeks' time? I've got 5 frames of brood. That's going to be 15 frames of bees. And it's just, when that sort of thing starts to click, then you immediately know where you're heading with the colony, or where you should be heading with it. And then when there's problems, and it's fascinating beekeeping. You're just constantly learning, which is, even at commercial level, because keeping 40 hives, 50, 100, up to 500, it's just different all the time. And you just have to develop new ways of doing it. And somebody that's sat there now with 20 colonies, but without the gear to make them efficient, it's as much work as somebody running 200 really efficiently with all of the tackle to do it. It is a really hard thing, beekeeping, when you don't have everything at your disposal that you kind of want.
Yeah. In terms of your climate, do you feel that there's anything changed from when you first start beekeeping? Do you think it's warmed up a little bit, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think we've been around long enough to say for sure, to be honest. It was such a short period of time in reality.
I think we do. We do
say that the seasons are shifting, don't they? And the plants and the bees and everything are not quite.
I don't want to jinx anything particularly, but I don't know. You get bad seasons, you get good ones, and where we are in our part of the world, if it was an exceedingly warm, hot summer, it wouldn't necessarily be as bad as it would be if we were in the south of the country, because we're much more naturally wet, really. So kind of, those really hot summers that we've been getting hasn't had that sort of significant droughting effect that you'd see further down south. But
whereas Wales actually stopped raining for a few days.
Well, that's it, exactly. So I don't know. It is something that we're obviously keeping a really close eye on, and I think that's the thing with breeding queens and bees as well. They've just got to be we've got to breed them to be as good as they can be to adapt.
I think for us it's just that being adaptable, and if we get 3 weeks of rain, that they're not going to be absolutely on the knees after it, and there's going to be plenty of stores. That's a really big part of the breeding work, is resilience, and obviously the winters. It's incredible how long our winters are when you compare them to like Australia, where they see about 2 to 3 months of winter, and we're sat here.
And in terms of varroa for them, that's why I think they're going to struggle so much because they just don't
Yeah,
get.
they're going to really struggle with Varroa.
Yeah. But yeah, from our point of view and looking at how we might develop and adapt to things, I mean, one thing that really fascinates me, speaking of Ian Stepler, and the concept of overwintering bees inside, and thinking, is that a thing that might happen over here, depending on what happens, if the Gulf Stream shuts down, or we get cold winters. But then I'm just thinking, well, if they're all inside and the management of them, is that easier or not? And it's just, this is what I mean about learning and changing and adapting to things, not necessarily just doing things in the same way because you always have done. There might be a better way to do it.
Absolutely. I've often thought about that because some people here in France have tried overwintering their bees for some of the time in their cellars, and providing it's dark and it's sort of 6 to 8 degrees, they're kind of happy with that. But it's just wonderful, to be honest, that we've got someone doing it and getting good at it. Really good at it. So if we ever, like you said, if the Gulf
tell us how to do it,
we can go. Oh, right. Can we just borrow you for a little minute? By the way, when you did that, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Ultimately, the bees have been around since the Jurassic period, so it's also got to worry, not them. They'll be fine. They'll make it through.
I mean, if you listen to Steve Martin, we were talking about tropicalaps and things like that. It was the BVKA event last year, and he said quite rightly, the bees will be absolutely fine. They might move away from an area for, say, 2,000 or 3,000 years and then come back because of a pest was predating them for a while, but they will eventually level off and do their thing, and they'll just be there. It's us that's the problem, because we live for such short.
Forced to live places.
Exactly. Yeah, we do. Fascinating. Question just come in. How often do you actually, in your production hives, how often do you requeen your colonies?
Well, because we're selecting for breeders, it's not like everything's getting requeened. You'll have favourites that get pinned, different colours, and we'll keep them for as long as humanly possible. But generally, we'll try to requeen every 2 years. Really, we wouldn't want to see any queens going into the third winter that are planning to be a production colony, because they're just the everything drops off. So
the other thing that people don't, sorry to interrupt, the other thing people don't remember is when your queens requeen, they're not just requeening with any old thing flying around. They're requeening probably with some of the drones that you've got flying around of your selection. Would that be fair to say?
Well, we'll run a decently mated queen into our colonies, but we'll take the old queen out and usually put her into a nuke. Keep her over
insurance
winter.
Policy.
And she's an insurance policy. And then
requeen her.
But she can also provide loads of brood for our breeding work. So, she can just be a donor hive. There's loads of different job roles for the bees in our business. So.
And that's the job roles are quite important, really, because you can be faced with a massive number of colonies. But the way that the systems work much better is if you actually say this apiary is doing nukes, this apiary is doing drones, this apiary is doing that. It makes your workload much more focused because you know exactly where stuff is and what they're doing. And it takes a little bit of time of balancing things out in spring and putting things where they should be. And that is, sometimes you think, oh, why am I just floating around moving one hive from this site, but actually it's for the greater good of managing the season.
I definitely agree with you on that. I was thinking that today, the very thing, because I've got to move hives this week, and it's the few things you do at the right time of year that make the rest of the year so workable. That's what I find. If you move your hives while they're small, they're easy to move. You don't even think about it. If you move them later on in the year, you've got huge colonies that overheat, that you've got to move at like the last thing at night, and it's like, why didn't I just move them when I had the chance, when they were colonies?
Exactly.
No, it's interesting. One other question just come in about your drone breeders. How you talked about how difficult it was to do that early in the talk. What is there any sort of tips you could give that you do? Do you obviously you have to feed them well?
Yeah, we give them the legs, really, as in these aren't run on single brood boxes. They're run on double brood boxes, so that queen has got the biggest possible population of workers, because the workers are what is actually going to support the drones and make sure that the honey's coming in. But having said that, I'm changing how we're managing them, because this is how we have managed them over the years. But part of me thinks mating apiary setting, where you've got 200 apideas, do you really need the 30 drone mothers in big colonies that are actually potentially impacting on the success of those apideas? When there's a dearth and there's a bit of robbing going on and stuff, do you really want those massive colonies there? Do you really want the burden of drones on your breeding stock? There's the potential for varroa to explode in drone colonies. So that's why I think now we'd have those drone colonies running effectively in the honey operation, pinned up, and then we're going around with when we move and do splits, we have a traveling screen effectively on the bottom of a brood box, and then on top of the brood box another one. And so we've got brood that we can put in drone brood, which will then go into drone bank nukes, which are made up of a couple of frames of worker brood and a frame of drone brood, and feeding those really and keeping that feed going in front of them. And then every 2 weeks, more drone growing into that and topping up with worker brood. But this is also part of you can't forget about the brood diseases, and we are very fortunate to be in an area where we can move stuff between apiaries, and we're in a very low risk area. So this is why we're actually really quite keen to keep our disease, keep disease out of Northumberland, because we can do this stuff.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Your selection for your colonies and your selection for your breeder queens, do you buy some breeder queens in? Do you swap genetics with other people? You obviously got a pool of people now you might share genetics with.
Yeah, we do. We share genetics. We don't buy anything in, but it's been really enlightening over the last few years, because when we started out on this process, we were very much alone, really, and we've built up a lot of breeding stock from our own stuff, and it's really incredibly hard to do that. And a lot of people that will sell queens, they're just rearing them. They've got the breeders in, they just rear them, all of that. What we're trying to do is actually breed as well as rear, which is a really tough task, really. But we've got a number of very large scale bee farmers who have been using our stock. They are then also there's nothing harder as a breeder to send 200 queens to somebody that's running 1,500 colonies, that and really knows his stuff. We can sell a queen to a hobby beekeeper and they're like, this is a good queen, but you put that in front of a bee farmer who runs 1,500 colonies, and he has massively higher expectations a lot of the time. And you are getting weighed, judged, measured and everything. And you've got to be able to go and then him say, actually, I like this about that queen that you've sent me, but I think this could be better. And then we'll be like, right, well, how are we going to do this then? And what does this look like? And what is your best queen? And we've been really fortunate to work with a couple of really good bee farmers that way. And we've sent stock too. They've sent some of our stock back and said, this has been exceptional. Or, this is a queen that I've had for 4 years that has been, that's from my operation. That's brilliant. Can you make me a breeder queen from it? And we've done stuff like that. And we've instrumentally inseminated buckfast breeder queens for people, and then grafted from those to then sell them their progeny back, because they know what those lines are. And it's interesting when you come to think about imports and stuff, and often people say, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing anything to do with buckfast and things. But this year alone, I think we've probably avoided about 400 or 500 imports purely by working with bee farmers' existing stock to create breeder queens to then send them back. So it's kind of like, we've got the tools to do a lot of breeding, and it's really been quite exciting to get involved with it. So it's a big task, is the breeding selection process, and it's
absolutely. Is there anything you can just share that, like, what's your do you select from your stock at home, or do you say no? You select
from everything, really, because there'll be stuff that just springs out and be like, well, this is an absolutely exceptional queen. And it all starts with how they're handling.
We
really.
have like instrumentally inseminated ones that we did obviously last year, that we've pinned up already, and we'll check them and see how they've gone over winter. So that's what we sort of, the ones we tend to look at first.
And then graft daughters from
yeah.
those, and then see what those daughters come out like and go from there, really.
Yeah.
But that's it. You know, you want you need to create quite a lot of those queens, really. And out of 200 instrumentally inseminated queens, you know, 2 or 3 of those might become a breeder queen.
Yeah. But that is the reality of it, isn't it? But you're prepared to go to that, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
Because your selection is key. You know,
People
and that's what's so
automatically
good.
assume a instrumentally inseminated queen will be a breeder queen, or it is a breeder queen, but it's not really. It's just the queen that we think we've got right and that we've bred right. But actually, it like I say to people, they'll always sort of say, even with open mated queens, how will this queen be? And actually, when you're shopping for queens and buying queens, there'll be a lot of traits and everything else discussed, but it is an animal that we're working with at the end of the day. And it could be, if you buy one queen, it could be the best queen that I've ever sold and I want it back, or it could be the worst queen. And actually, they're like a lottery ticket, really. And the more of them you get, effectively, the more consistency, hopefully, you'll see over it.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge task, and I take my hat off to you guys. Because I've done instrumental insemination myself. I've still got all the kit, and maybe one day I'll get it out again and have another go. But I know what it's like to raise queens in the quantity and quality you need. I know what it's like to bank them. I know what it's like to do all that, and it's no mean feat to do that. So, you know, fair play to you guys. I honestly, that's why I wanted to have you on, because it's fascinating to have someone producing, you know, honey and nukes and all that, but then to have the other side where you're making mead. And then to have someone else, to have someone who's also at the same time inseminating queens is pretty impressive. So well done, guys. Keep up the good work. I'm looking forward to hear how you get on this year. I hope you have a great year. Just very quickly to end, what were your winter losses looking like? Virtually nothing?
About 2.5%, 3% probably.
Wow, yeah.
So
I think I'm about 8, maybe 9%. I'm extremely happy with that. It's one of my best winters ever, despite being really wet. You know, but yeah, brilliant. So I think we'll wrap it up there. We've only been talking for an hour and a half, which has gone as usual, just like that. Luke and Susie, thanks so much for coming on. Absolutely brilliant to have you on. Have you got any questions you want to ask me?
How did you become a famous YouTuber?
Well, don't ask me. There's plenty of famous ones out there, but don't ask me, because I'm not.
I was thinking about this before. When did you move to Brittany? Before you started beekeeping or after you started beekeeping? And was the language and getting sites and all that weird stuff, was it ever a problem for you, or did you just crack on like you would in the UK?
I moved to France 2002, and I've only been beekeeping about 15 years. I think it's 15 years. So I started, coincidentally, just when I got divorced is when I started beekeeping. So, and I think the bees were the cause of my divorce, probably, but I don't know. I can't tell you. So it didn't work.
Protect cages.
Yeah, it didn't work for me, you guys. So, yeah. So, and the other thing was when I did landscape gardening, and I used to have loads of people with gardens and like 8 amazing places to put swarm traps. So my local beekeeper taught me to do swarm trapping, and then I put swarm traps in everyone's garden. So that's how I started my bees, and they were awful. They had, so that if there's ever been a kind of a learning curve to start from, like, you might have seen, you got kids, you know, Kung Fu Panda, when he says there is now a level 0. Well, that was my beekeeping. When you look at your brood and you've got chalk brood and probably all the other stuff you shouldn't have, poor laying queens, that's when you learn beekeeping kind of really hard. And I learned the hard way, but it's a good exercise to have done it. And now I can look at a colony and go, that's pretty good. The selection I've done is pretty basic, but I bought genetics in from like Tenuta, Bratiro. They are really good on their selection in terms of hygienicness. So for me, that's how I started. But I will never have the time. I need someone to help me really, but whether I go down the road of making the business bigger and doing anywhere near what you've done is another thing. So, but for me, I just do honey and bees and a few queens. That kind of works. But yeah, I was just fortunate to have people that had swarm traps rammed in their gardens, whether they liked it or not. And then suddenly I said, oh, I used to put a swarm trap there. Oh, can I put an apiary in it? I've got like 12 apiaries now. So,
That's
but
really
it just takes, it took ages.
Great how it happens.
Yeah, but it takes ages, but you get to know this rapport with the people. My language is still really bad. I can still struggle to speak fluent, well, I don't even speak fluent French, but I get by. But all the people know me now, and you just get accepted. I think because also the region I'm in, people are very much agricultural based, and they respect kind of people who live off the land like us bee farmers do. You know, we're always out. You know, you work alongside the farmers. They're like, how you doing? You know, yeah, no problem. They know you. It's literally like that. There's no problem at all. I have very few areas where I'm near houses. So
that's great. That's great.
It is pretty good. So yeah. Anyway, enough about me. Thanks, guys, for coming on. Great for the chat. Really, really interesting tonight. Absolutely loved it. Next week, we're doing a live with Bob Binney for recording for him on Asian hornets. So he's going to publish that on his channel, hopefully in a week or two after. So it won't be on mine because of probably because of copyright problems. We've got to look into that, but it'll be on Bob's channel. So that's coming up in about a week, I hope. So thanks once again, everybody. Speak to you again soon. We'll have another live probably next week. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.